Hello everyone to our Zoom session today. We do a little pitch session. We're going to talk about one case study after the pitch session, but first, and that is if we have enough time. We may or may not do that. But first we're going to do a pitch session where some of you who are willing to share their projects today with us are going to introduce us to their brilliant ideas for either a film or television project, which I am personally very excited to hear about. And it's actually not just going to be me who you will be pitching to, but you also will be pitching to Jim Milio. He happens to be my husband, but better and more important than that, he is an executive for over, I would say, 35 years. And he's an Emmy-winning writer, producer, director. He is, I think his most known credits are My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Rescue 911, The Dog Whisperer. And what is important to know about him is that as someone who owns a production company, he would often talk to producers like yourself and acquire their product. So much like what Alliance Cinema does, what my company does, other production companies do the same thing. You would go to them, you would do exactly what you're doing today, and you would pitch to them. And they will then take the project to a network station. And Jim has worked with pretty much all the network stations. Dog Whisperer, I think, was with National Geographic. He worked with ABC. He worked with TNT. I mean, he worked with all the network stations that anyone can think of. So he kind of knows what the network stations would want. And I'm going to look at projects that are driven by feature buyers. Like I would be the one that you would pitch to if you want to get a movie made. So I am more the representative today for the feature world, and Jim is going to be more the representative for feature as well, but also stuff that can maybe go on television or is like a series or something like that. So I would like to have Jim go on and see if he can say a few words about himself. Jim, are you there?
I'm here.
There you are. Hello.
Hi, honey.
So why don't you tell us all about you? How did you get started in the industry, and what drove you, and why are you where you are today?
Well, I loved movies ever since I was in, even prior to high school. And by happenstance, I lived in the Midwest, and I had an opportunity to go to Los Angeles when I was 20 years old. I didn't know anybody, and I wanted to become a resident of California, go to UCLA Film School, and then get a career in film and television. By dumb luck, 30 days after living in Los Angeles, I walked into the 20th Century Fox studios, and they had just fired somebody from the mailroom. And I interviewed with 3 people to get a mailroom job and got that job the same day. So I started as a mailboy at 20th Century Fox, which was awesome for a 20-year-old. And I knew nothing about the movie business or the TV industry other than I love movies. And I had made some Super 8 movies as a high schooler. So I didn't know anything about how the business worked. And it took me about 8 months of mailroom time. I mean, when I started at the mailroom, I was so excited, and I walked in on day 1, and there was this guy, Steve, and I said, "So how long have you been in the mailroom?" He goes, 8 years. And then there was a guy, Dan, and I said, "How long have you been in the mailroom?" He goes, 13 years. And I'm like, I think I have the wrong mailroom. But I got out after 8 months. I was able to get a job as a production assistant on late night specials for ABC television. And from there, I built a career just by learn as you earn is what I call it. And I started as a PA and worked my way up to being an associate producer. And then I worked on a lot of retrospective specials, like great moments of Disney animation, a Muppets 30th anniversary. And so I ended up doing editing, a lot of editing, which helped me get some jobs. And I ended up doing both, mostly television. I think 90% of my career TV projects. But as Jeanette mentioned, I did work on My Big Fat Greek Wedding and several other movies. And the TV stuff has been primarily in nonfiction and reality. Rescue 911 was an early precursor of the reality world. It aired on CBS for 7 seasons. I produced, directed, and wrote on that show. And then I formed my own company, and we did The Dog Whisperer and a bunch of other shows for all the various cable networks.
Great. So what I like about this kind of scenario is, and Jim and I do this every day because we are developing a lot of shows and we're financing and producing them. We always have to deal with buyers who have opinions, buyers who have deep pockets or not so deep pockets. So we always have to figure out, A, how do we sell to them? How do they find us special enough to want to do a deal with us? And also, how do we stay in a financially feasible framework so we're not too expensive or too cheap. We have to be, it's a balance. So what I would like to do is, I would like the first group to present a project to Jim and I. And who wants to be first? Elle and Lisa. Lisa is waving. All right, Lisa, why does your group start?
Okay. So Gloria, are you sharing the screen or? Okay.
If I look away, it's only because I'm making notes. I'm not bored.
It's fine, don't worry.
Ooh, I like the graphics. Sorry, I'll shut up now. I'm already excited.
Okay, so sorry.
Okay, so everyone can see the screen then. Great. I just wanted to confirm. Okay, good.
So, okay. So hi everyone. So tonight we will be talking to you about the IP-based film we've been working on called Cat's Eye. So what is Cat's Eye? So originally it was a very popular Japanese manga series. It follows the adventures of three sisters, the Kizuki sisters, who are great art thieves and who are trying to get all of their, to collect like all their father's artwork because he disappeared and they're trying to find clues in it. So it was adapted as an anime in the 80s, and then there was a first TV adaptations and then a theatrical film. So we decided to make another live action adaptation. And so Gloria, can you put the log line on, please? I'm sorry.
It's okay, no, it's fine.
So this is our log line. So in this live action adaptation of the popular Japanese anime, a note from their long gone father puts the three Kizuki sisters on the path to reconnecting with another missing relative. So the story follows the three sisters as they embark on a new heist to look for clues about their father's disappearance after they receive a note from him. So Cat's Eye soon discovers that they have been dubbed by the evil uncle Kranav, who has been impersonating their father the entire time. Kranav does manage to tell the three sisters that their mother is alive and she has been looking for them, and he's going to try to stop this family reunion. So we plan to release this film in the COVID world, just so you know. This will make more sense when we go to the finance plan with Gloria.
Okay.
Now we're going to move on to the characters. So first we have Hitomi. Hitomi is the lead of the Cat's Eye. She's the middle sister, and she has the athleticism and martial arts skills to fend off enemies during the heists. She's like a mother figure to her sisters. She's kind-hearted, mischievous, and clever. Then we have Toshio. Toshio is the police officer tasked with catching Cat's Eye. He's also her boyfriend, and he has no idea what she's really up to. Then we have Ri. Ri is the oldest sister of the trio. She's a backup to Hitomi in coordinating the Cat's Eye heist. She's elegant, sophisticated, and she helps map out the outline for each heist. Then we have Ai. Ai is the youngest sister. She assists her sister with all the heists when she's not in high school doing high school work. She's feisty, a tomboy, and mischievous. So these were the original main characters, and we're gonna add a couple more. So Michael Hines, the father. Mr. Hines is an art collector who has gone missing. Is actually trying to find out what happened to him by solving clues that they found in his artwork. Then we have Kranav. Kranav character just for the two of the three sisters is evil and potentially involved with the disappearance of Michael Hines. And then we will see also their mom, and we're going to cover her storyline as the movie goes. So I'm going to leave it to Roxanne.
I think Taylor's up.
That is
Oh,
me.
it's Taylor? Oh, sorry.
Hello, it's me. I'm Taylor. Yeah, so to direct this feature film, we're going to bring on Deborah Chow, a super talented director who has made waves with the immensely successful show The Mandalorian, which recently dropped. Also has been working in prestigious television for a while as a director. We'd love to use this film as an opportunity to bring her into the world of features. She's extremely talented. She has an eye for action, while still keeping the main characters at the focus, balancing the pathos with the action adventure. And we think that she is the strongest pick for directing this film. For the producer, we're going to have Amazon Studios produce it. They already own the rights to the Cat's Eye franchise. Furthermore, people know Amazon Studios as a producer who can pull off engaging, really interesting action adventure series and films. Listed there are Jack Reacher and Hannah, two very popular series with strong action adventure elements. So that's who we're bringing on there.
So before we launch into talent, we just wanted to say a few words about the importance to us of respecting the Japanese culture. This is originally an anime, and we want to make sure that not only are we respecting the culture, but we're bringing to the forefront any Asian talent that already exists. We're also looking for opportunities to break new talent, but that being said, for our three main characters, these very feisty women, we're looking at Karen Fukuhara as Hitomi, Kelly Marie Tran as Rui, and Lana Condor as Ai. For Toshi's role, Stephen Yoon, Luca Paris as the father, Lucy Liu as the mother, and Charles Dance as the uncle. And specifically with regard to Lucy Liu, we're really excited about casting her because we believe that she's going to bring in a lot of attention for our financial productions. She is well known in the action genre, most well known for her role in Charlie's Angels. And we think that she's kind of the best person possible to usher in this new wave of young female badassery.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to our mood and aesthetics, we're looking for giving our audience heart-pumping action. We're going to be doing a lot of daring stunts. We've got fights and chase scenes that are going to really get the audience really excited and raring. And we've got, of course, our super important museum heist scenes that are going to be just super suspenseful and some jaw-dropping stuff we're planning for these characters. Music, because the anime started in the 80s, we think it's also really important to reflect that time period. So our plan is to take the best sounds and the best talent of the 80s and update it for today's audiences using some really talented multi-instrumentalists to keep our budget low there, but making sure that we're not sacrificing on the quality of the score. Risk management. So we've worked with post-production and VFX to make sure that we're handling those as in-kind services. We're utilizing a lot of incentives offered in Chicago. They have really fantastic incentives, brand integration, crowdfunding, some music integration to lower the budget more. And it's really important that we're doing this because we're trying to make sure that we're getting this film done on time and on budget. And then, of course, here's beautiful Chicago, which is we've seen in several films before. I think most notably Batman, the Dark Knight series. This city can really take on any character it wants to be. So we're really excited to use this as our locale.
So as the rest of my team members mentioned, we chose Chicago for not just its location, but because the fact that it has a lot of production cast and below the line people who are already ready to go over there. So we wouldn't really have to necessarily move people from Los Angeles out to Chicago because they have the infrastructure already set up. So we're planning on having most of our below the line talent and cast and people who are working on set as part of our incentive. So our budget is going to be 25 million for this. About 29% of it is going to go to above the line, and another 29% of it is going specifically to labor, and then the remaining 40% is going to our other costs associated with the project. And we're also budgeting for COVID-19 with the 10% expectation of spend on COVID-19 related things like PPE and testing and such. So for our estimates, what we did for our estimates is that we looked at previous assignments that we had within this class for action adventure, and then we measured it up to a $25 million budget. So this one was originally for 15 million, so we bumped it up by 35%, and we adjusted all the estimates accordingly. For our actual finance plan, we are doing kind of a blended release. So we're going to be releasing in locations where theaters are open, because not everywhere has theaters open. For all the options where theaters are not available for people to go and view the movie, we're going to be going back towards Amazon. So our sales estimates right now are 70% because there's a decent amount that are still open right now. Our pre-sales being 30%. And we have Amazon contributing 35% of our budget for us. For our senior loan, they're going to be funding and cash flowing of 90% of that loan with a down payment of 20% and interest, blended interest of 8% between the senior loan and our gap loan. And then for our mezzanine loan, it's only going to be 10% of our budget at 2.5 million. Our production incentive, which is going to be 45% of our labor costs, is going to end up being 3 million and 3.3 million, just about 3.4 million almost. Our brand integration, which we have another slide and we'll be following up with that later on. We do have a brand that we plan on partnering because it's an action movie. So we're going to be pulling in some really sweet rides and stuff like that. We have our crowdfunding, which ended up being about $750,000. We had our crowdsourcing options being $250,000, and our music event, music incentive that Roxanne brought up, another $250,000. Our equity only ends up being about 30% of our budget at this time.
How many percent is equity?
30.
Okay, got it.
And then these are the calculations that we used to take, or that we considered with our finance plan. So because we have that blended release approach, we do have box office revenues expected to be around 60 million. We came to that determination because the most recent Charlie's Angels movies that came out, which had a higher budget than us, estimated at around 80 billion. Mm-hmm. So we revised down because we aren't spending as much as that film. So we lowered our expectations with it as well. So our incentives, which I calculated, which are the other images, I added up all the below the line labor so I could figure out what our actual labor spend would be, our qualified spend. And then I took a 45% take of that to figure out what our actual incentive would be. And then towards the bottom, that was kind of our guide in terms of how much we're going to be spending on different, like our rights fees, our development expenses and overhead, marketing and publicity, legal and finance. So we referenced the book for this to figure out how much to spend on each of these different aspects. So, and then once we started entering things into the budget, we adjusted accordingly so it could make sense if we had to cut a little here or add a little bit more somewhere else. And then for our actual recoupment schedule, which was brought in a little bit from our box office revenues, which I showed on the last slide. We have the foreign distribution revenues, which was the estimates that was previously noted of the 17.5 million. And then our down payment of 1.5. And then our foreign distribution revenues is 16 million. And then we also added in our expected revenues from the US. Our adjusted gross revenue was 518,750. We added in our expenses as well, our collection agency fee of 1%, and then our sales agent fee of 12.5%. And then we added in our SAG residuals expectations of $150,000 as well. We had our mezzanine loan of a 15% premium, and then we had our equity principal investment of 20%, and then we didn't have any deferrals for this project. So our total expenses ended up being 24 million, which is less than our adjusted gross revenues. So continuing on to our back-end participations, our equity investor wanted 50% of the amount invested. So from the 30%, it brought it down to 15.23. And then we didn't have anything for our mezzanine and our deferments. Our talent pool, we are contributing 30%, and that was what was negotiated. So they get 507,000. And then our crowdfunding was on the back end of 3%. So that was another 50,000 that goes to them. And then we ended up as our total with 876,480 or $458 for profits towards the producer.
All right, in regards to VFX, we're bringing in a number of studios. These are picked out, A, because of the quality of their work, and B, because a lot of them were brought onto The Mandalorian, a series not only praised for its visual effects, but also a series that Deborah Chow worked on. Together, these studios combine compositing, digital paint, animation, lighting, photogrammetry, and many, many more areas. As for marketing, we've seen a number of female-driven, or we've seen a number of female ensemble films in recent years. Some that have done very well fall in the heist genre, including Ocean's 8 and Hustlers. We're really going to play up that aspect in our marketing, the fact that this is a heist movie, because who doesn't love a heist movie? They're really, really cool. And that's what Cat's Eye does best. They steal things. But why bother stealing things if you don't look cool while doing it? That's where we bring in Suzuki here. We're bringing in them as a brand partner for their motorcycles, because Cat's Eye always steals in style. We're going to use the partnership with that brand will give us additional funds. It'll play into our marketing as well, really emphasizing the Suzuki motorcycles. And not just any Suzuki motorcycles, but specifically their 80s models. Seeing as this film takes place in the film and the series is around the 80s time, we're going to bring in a lot of 80s nostalgia, such as brands like Polaroid, 80s culture, 80s brands that people will feel very nostalgic about. That's going to play into our marketing strategy. Anyone have any questions?
I have a few questions.
I do too.
Okay, Jim, do you want to start? So first of all, let me say, well done, great presentation, very detailed. Obviously, we're focusing a lot on the financing aspect. That's fine, but it's a great idea, very commercial. The comparables are great. So all that, I have to say, I'm very, very positively surprised and pleased with what I'm saying. So I say, Jim, you start with your questions.
Okay. Well, again, I will concur with Jeanette. I think it's a very nice presentation, and you guys covered a lot of bases really, really well. I have a couple story questions that were not clear to me from your pitch. Are they art thieves because their father has gone missing, or is there some other reason why they're art thieves?
No, that's the reason why. Actually, they're just trying to find clues within the artwork. And the artwork is like spread out in different places and cities, and they're just trying to, they're organizing heists to get all the pieces together to try to find him.
And these are clues that he left before whatever happened to him.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, exactly.
And when do we as the audience learn this? Do we learn early on? Is it revealed deeper into the film? Are they, in other words, do we just think they're art thieves going in, or do we know this from the get-go?
So the idea was to have like the middle point was for them to realize that the note they received was actually from their uncle and not their father. So they had been leading by him, but it wasn't actually him. And we want to have a twist by the end that they actually found their mother through their uncle. I don't know if this is clear.
And their uncle is not Japanese.
No, he's not. Yeah, he's not.
Okay.
Because their father isn't either. And it's the brother to their father.
Okay. And this is a question also maybe for Jeanette. I wonder because Lucy Liu, I think, is a good name, but I don't know how strong she is in terms of helping you get the budget that you want. And so I wonder, rather than someone like Charles Dance, if there's a name, bigger actor, male actor, who might help you with pre-sales and things like that, since you're going with the Japanese casting, which I understand, you're bringing in these new relative newcomers or people who aren't names. Lucy Liu's a good name, but you know, some of the other shows you reference, like Charlie's Angels and Ocean's 8, they have mega casts. So you want to, I think that might help, at least in terms of the budgeting. But it sounds like obviously a very intriguing story. Clearly you can have a lot of great dynamics among the sisters and whatever pain they go through from having lost their father. And is the uncle a bad guy or a good guy? Just to understand.
Bad guy, and probably had something to do with their father's disappearance.
Okay, got it.
Twisty.
We always like twists. You know, Jeanette, I have to say, is a master at figuring out plots before they happen. We'll be 2 minutes into a movie and she goes, that guy did it. I'm like, I'm here. I haven't figured it out yet. Now I got to watch this movie where you already figured out the ending. So the more twists and turns, the better, honestly. I know you've all felt this where you're watching something on Netflix or one of these streaming services and you just know that guy did it. Or I know he seems like a nice guy now, but he's the villain. And you really want to stay a step ahead of your audience whenever you can, especially when you're pitching to executives because they've seen and heard everything. And so anytime you can throw a curveball at them in a pitch, that's super helpful because literally so many people follow the formula so closely that it's just predictable. And you want to try to be as unpredictable, given the fact that you've set up this scenario, you want to try to be as unpredictable as you can as it's going forward.
Sounds like the story is pretty unpredictable. My comments are going to be a little bit about the actual business plan itself. So a few things I noticed, and I'm just going to go in order of how I made my notes. When you, first of all, visuals, I really like the visuals. You used my finance plans, which is great. When you do a real presentation, you can condense it a little more, just FYI. Just basically go by, here's all our revenues, and here is how much money we were spending, and here's how much money we're making. So you can feel free to condense it. You don't necessarily need to put in backup information. If an investor wants backup, if this is going to an investor, they will ask you for it and you can send that later, just FYI. The character descriptions, you had a picture and basically the character names. In a pitch deck, you want to describe these characters. So basically the verbal presentation that you gave me, you want to also put that in like 5 lines in the pitch deck so that people, when they see the document, don't necessarily have you next to them needing to explain what these characters are all about.
Janet, can I mention one thing here? Because that's a really important point. Unless you're pitching to the CEO of the company or the head of the network, your project will be pitched up the ladder and you will not be there. So everything in the deck has to be self-explanatory, or it has to be so strong that the person pitching it at the studio on your behalf, since you won't be there, is very clear about all the points. So anything that's in the document really helps you because you're not there to answer their questions.
Right. So the character descriptions should be there. The story log line you had, you can have a story log line. In your case, it was pretty straightforward. You're basically referring to an IP that already exists, which is great. And because you are referring to an IP that exists, what would also be great is if you tell me a little bit about the IP and say, the IP was very famous in Japan. It made so and so much in revenues there. in whatever level that was. Was it a comic book? Was it a TV show? Whatever it was, it made revenues of this in that territory. And because it's such a strong IP, due to these revenues and it's commercial, you feel it's something that you want to bring to America. So numbers if you use an existing IP are helping to translate it to the Western world if they don't know it, because I don't know this IP. So I would want to, as an investor, I would say, okay, well, how much did it make? Like if someone comes to me and pitches a story based on a book that has been released, I always ask how many copies were sold. Similar thing, right? You also said something about Amazon. The relationship between Amazon and this feature is not clear to me. Is Amazon the US buyer? Is Amazon buying certain territories? What is Amazon's role? What rights are they actually buying?
So Amazon is buying the rights for all the territories where we actually can't release the film because there are no theaters open at the time.
Okay, that was not clear.
Okay.
So you would have to do the following. When you do a business plan together where you sell certain rights or assign certain rights to a certain entity, you need to lay out what those are and how much you're getting for them. In this case, you said, I think Amazon is giving you, what was 35% or something?
Yes.
So you would say, Amazon is giving me 35% for these territories. And then it's clear, right? And then you say, and then the rest we are going to release. We're going this in the US, here are the rest of the territories that we're selling, because you can only sell what Amazon is not taking. Mm-hmm. So when you're telling me releasing in certain territories, that means they're not available for you. So the 70% international revenues that you have may be affected by this. So I don't know if some of the 70% revenues are Amazon territories or not. So that needs to be clarified in order for you to figure out, okay, how much am I actually getting from international if I'm handing some territories over to Amazon? So that's something to remember next time. Okay. The other thing to remember is you said Amazon owns the rights to the IP. Now here's a question. If Amazon owns the rights to the IP, why do they need you to make that movie? Why are they not making the movie? So the explanation would have been, for example, Amazon owns the rights to the IP, but only in Japan, and we are acquiring the rights actually with Amazon. We're doing a co-production deal with Amazon to bring this movie out of Japan and doing it here, and we're packaging it and we're making it interesting for them. So they're hiring, it's basically a co-production between them and us, where we're sharing the rights. We're basically saying they own the rights, but we do the production, so it's a real co-production. And you can do that, but it needs to be explained. The easier way would be to say, and I don't know if Amazon owns the right or not, but let's say, and maybe they do, but let's say they wouldn't. Then you could just say, we acquired the rights from the IP holder in Japan, and Amazon is buying these territories because that's where Amazon is very strong and wants to expand into, for example. But if you say Amazon owns the rights, then I need to know, why is Amazon not producing it? So you need to tell me then, the reason why we're doing it with Amazon is because it's a co-production and they believe in our package, they believe in our Japanese casting, they believe in Lucy Liu, they believe in our shooting this in Chicago. That's why we're structuring this co-production with Amazon. And then it all comes together and makes sense. List examples of, so when you give me these Japanese actors that I for sure have never heard of, and that means nothing because I don't know any, not all actors. And it's great also that I haven't heard of them because it makes them authentic. But I would want to know a little bit about them. So if you have 3 girls, the Japanese actors playing these lead roles, it would be good to know where they have been before, what they have done before. So just write, this is the actor so-and-so, she did this role in this movie or this role in that movie. So I just have a reference, like what you did with Lucy Liu, you do it with these Japanese girls as well. If they haven't played anything here, that's fine. Just say they played this famous movie in Japan and it was a big box office hit. You know, may or may not be true, but you just write that. You give these actors some value to the people like me who don't know them, right? So I understand why you're casting them. And I think it's smart to put someone like Lucy Liu in because you're transferring the Japanese culture into the Western world with this character and giving your budget 25 million and elevation by using someone like Lucy Liu. Jim is right in saying on that level, you probably need someone else for the 25 million, but you get away with not having that other person if you're telling me what the value of the IP is. So if the IP is valuable, I would be okay with Lucy Liu because I know this is a very strong IP that has a success track record that I can make work here in the US as well. So that has something, the IP value has something that could basically lay off the need to cast up. Risk management. The one thing that I'm missing, even though you said you wanted, you missed two things in risk management. You always want to, when you say we want to produce on budget and on time, just put in we're using a completion bond because you said it, so you might as well say we're using a completion bond, right? I would also talk about the fact that you are handing the revenue collection over to a third party like the collection agent. So it's very transparent accounting. So just keep that in mind in the future. Just one sentence, but it does wonders. And then what you want to do is you want to get to the ROI of the equity investor. So you're going to condense your finance plan to revenues, expenses, and then you go straight to ROI. You don't need to tell the investor what you're making as a producer. You jump to the ROI of the investor, and how you get there is you look at the investor's 20%, you add their 15% profit participation. So now it's the 20% plus the 15% profit participation. That becomes a number. And then you transfer that in relation to the investment that they made. So you divide the money that they're making, the 20% and the 15% by the investment that they're making. And now you have the return of investment percentage that you want to add. So that the investor who might read this as an investor, as a business plan, knows how much money he can be making. And it would help to write things like you are expecting the revenues to be received within the first 3 to 5 years, so that they know how long it's going to take for some of this money to be received. And the way you can support it is by putting your sales agents in the under performance clause. And you can say that we have agreed with our sales agent who's selling this, who has this and this and this track record because this is what they do, and they have sold these and these and these movies before that are in the similar range. They agree to a performance clause that will reach our sales estimates within the first 5 years, because you can back it up with the sales agreement that you're going to add and give to the investor if they want it. So those are really the only comments that I have for you. It's a really great business plan, and it's a very, very good start. So you guys did really well. Congratulations on this.
Thank you.
Hearing this.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me? Was anything I said unclear?
No, I had one, but I forgot it already.
It'll come back, Gloria. It'll come back. All right. Who wants to go next? So whoever, yeah, thank you. Who is next in line?
Do we have more than 2 groups?
I think it's just, I want to say it's 2 or 3. I'm not sure. All right,
I'm happy to go next if you want me to jump in, or I can wait. I'm good either way.
Just go. Good is good.
Okay, then I will go.
Go, Kylie. Go, go. Hey there.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, let me share my screen. Share. Okay, let's see if I can make it a little bit smaller. So the film that we're producing is a feature called Regression, and it is a horror thriller in the vein of The Ring meets Get Out, which were both giant box office successes. And to kind of establish the mood of the film, the log line is a phobic-riddled romance novelist undergoes past life regression, but when she arrives in the south of France to meet her fiance's family, she realizes to her horror that the family estate is the same house from her past life and must uncover the dark truth of the sinister home and the family that inhabits it before it's too late. So our main character...
I'm already in.
I'm already in too.
So our main character is Maya Quinn. She's in her late 40s, and she's a failed romance novelist who suffers from a ton of different phobias that are kind of ingrained into her subconscious. So she undergoes past life regression as a way to overcome her fear of heights, but under hypnosis, she remembers living in a beautiful chateau in the late 1800s, but her memory of the house is far from inviting and culminates in her violent death when she's pushed from the roof. And then when Maya overcomes her fear of heights and travels to the south of France with her young fiance, Francois Allery, to meet his family. The family at first appears very warm and inviting, but it quickly becomes apparent that there's more than meets the eye to the Alleries. And to make matters worse, Maya starts experiencing strange phenomena in the house and confirms her worst fear, which is that the chateau is the same home from her past life. And not only that, but something sinister is lurking in the home and it's coming for her. But Maya is the only one that can see these strange occurrences that are increasing in frequency and becoming more violent the longer she remains in the house.
I have goosebumps.
Yay! So for the tone and mood of the film, we are really trying to elicit like a dark, moody, almost gothic feel. And we chose this because we really wanted to ramp up the feeling of suspense for the film. And then if we move down a little further, the location, we selected a location in the south of France to film. It's called the Domaine and Chateau of Buron, which is a beautiful estate. And we chose this because we felt we could hit all of the locations we needed to in one location. The interior of the house, as you can see, it has a number of spots within the home that feel almost inspired and capturing the unique tone and feel of what we're going for with this film. And then the exterior of the house and the surrounding areas also provide an array of different filming options that we want to utilize within one location. So we're really excited about the house we have lined up. Our director for the film, we've attached Alexander Aja, who is a French film director best known for his work in the horror genre. He rose to international stardom for the film High Tension, which became a horror film cult classic. And he's also directed the film The Hills Have Eyes, Mirrors, Piranha 3D, Horns, and his most recent film was Crawl, which was just released on to Prime. And the reason we chose this director is because he has a really proven track record in executing films in this genre and elevating them to an almost cult-like status. So next, we'll talk about our characters. Maya Quinn, 40s, is a failed romance author afflicted with many phobias. Each of her phobias are so ingrained in her subconscious that she seeks numerous forms of treatment to overcome them, but nothing works. Maya hides her fears from her fiance, believing that if she tells him the truth, she'll lose her last shot at love. Then we have Valentina Allery, who is the strong matriarch of the family. Her abrasiveness and treachery are obfuscated by moments of tenderness and compassion towards Maya, leading to the eventual acceptance of her future daughter-in-law. And then we have Francois Allery, who is her much younger fiance and feels almost as though he's been ripped right out of the pages of one of her romance novels. He's warm and open, yes, yet possesses a steely core, and Francois seems almost too good to be true. Then we have Adam Allery, who is the father of the family that served in the French army, but suffered a wound while serving and is confined to a wheelchair. And while he's initially warm to Maya, Adam finally shows his true colors and rules over his family with an iron fist. And then there's the youngest of the Allerys, which is Clara. She's chic, thin, with perpetually bloodshot eyes and lots of attitude. Maya and Clara quickly bond over their shared annoyance of Clara's mother. For our cast, we have Rachel Weisz as Maya Quinn, and we chose Rachel because she is an excellent actress with a proven track record of being able to achieve, both US and domestic, high box office numbers. And we really felt she fit this role perfectly. And then we also paired her against Isabella Huppert as Valentina Allery. Isabella is a French actress and is often described as one of the best actresses in the world, but she's really known for her portrayal of cold and disdainful characters that are devoid of emotion, which really is the antithesis of who Valentina Allery is. We've also cast for the remaining Allerys, Vincent Cassel as Adam Allery, Nicolas Duvachel as Francois Allery, and Leah Seydoux as Clara Allery. And we chose both a French director and a majority of French cast, not only to make the film feel more authentic, but also so we could achieve a higher amount of incentive in the France film regions. So that was our goal with this. For comparable films, we have Get Out, which grossed an amazingly almost $272 million worldwide. The Grudge, the most recent one, which also was 50 million worldwide, and Ready or Not, which grossed almost 60 million worldwide. And all three films have similar elements to our film, so we really feel like these box office numbers are pretty comparable. For our brand integration plan, we are using a brand integration agency that we've already are in talks with, and we have a number of brands that are on board. Many of these are French brands, but the reason we chose these brands and partnered up with them is because we're able to already integrate naturally into the script each of these brands in an organic way, so it won't feel like it's placed. They fit within the script that we already have established. So we really feel like we've got a good partnerships with all of these different companies, and we were able to reach a brand integration revenue of $250,000 with a net brand integration of a little less than $200,000. For our budget, we went by industry standards, and we are hitting a very reasonable number for the horror thriller genre of $15 million. So that's the number we are aiming to work with. And we've already been speaking with a reputable sales agent and have received estimates for our international sales, which luckily with Rachel Wise, we were able to get high estimates. And while we were able to reach a 70% level of our $15 million budget at the take level, we're calculating that into our finance plan, but we really feel like in the end, we're gonna be able to achieve the higher take level, or sorry, the higher ask level number. And we've already reached 30% in pre-sales. So we've got 4.5 million in pre-sales to add into our finance plan.
Is France one of the pre-sales?
Yes, it is one of the pre-sales. And because we're filming in France, we have them at the take level.
Number.
At the larger number,
Smart.
exactly.
Smart cookie, you.
And so now we are on to the regression finance plan. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. And Paul is going to jump in and talk a little bit about the finance plan.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you. What we're looking at is a pretty conservative estimate. Basically, when we look at international sales, especially, Rachel Weisz is a tremendous draw, both domestically and overseas. She's responsible in her leading roles for $864 million in international box office. So we feel that the 10.5 million that we have represented in this estimate is probably low. That said, we wanted to be, conservative so that we can give have a lot of upside. We are expecting, we're estimating that we'll get 35 million from a U.S. sale in U.S. box office, excuse me, and pre-sales. We're expecting, well, we already went over that, the pre-sale of 4.5 million. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail right now because we don't need to go into that, but let's get to the nitty gritty, which is how much are we going to make, right? So
right.
Let's look at our recoupment schedule. Once we factor in the international revenue, U.S. distribution revenues, we get to 13,696,875. And if we factor in all the fees, which includes the collection agency, which we will be engaging, we will be a bonded production. We expect a 1% fee for the collection agency, sales agent's fee for international at standard 12.5%. SAG, we figured a little lower figure because we're not expecting a huge number of SAG actors in this. One of the things also that I should say is we've been pretty conservative, and sorry if I'm going to make you go up for a second. We're also conservative with the French incentive. France has, this is kind of the basic 30% incentive. And because we have the director, we have actors, it's going to be shot in France. There's a lot of opportunity for capturing the incentive there, but they also have cultural incentives, which are additional monies that we can apply to this. So this 3.75 million that we'll be getting in incentives is shown here is conservative as well. So if we go back down, we can see total expenses come in at $8 million. This includes, we're making an allowance for an equity premium, a premium to the equity investor of 20%, which would be $568,650, which is a nice little fee for something that we think is going to be tremendously successful. And the equity investor on the backside would get $91,535. Again, that's very conservative. We think we'll do much more internationally, especially if you look at our genre. If you look at Rachel Weisz, the French actors, yes, they're French actors, but they're recognizable French actors, internationally and in the United States. So we can capitalize on their recognizability here as well as abroad. One thing that we have not reflected here that we have room to put in is the talent pool. We have room to add talent, shared revenues on the backside to the talent pool, and still, even if we had, for instance, a 30% share to them, that would be represent about $290,000. We would still end up $500,000 plus in total net profit. And again, this is a very conservative plan. We feel very comfortably that we would be able to pay out the revenues in 3 to 5 years. And the combination of it being a horror thriller space with Rachel Weisz, with the incentives that we'll be able to recoup, we feel like this is a very solid plan moving forward. And just so we might point out that the budget does take into consideration Rachel Weisz, so that we've put in more money in above the line cast because of that, to take that into consideration.
Awesome. We also have partnered with the executive producer, Jeanette Milio, who has graciously agreed to come on board and help us out with this project. So we're super excited because she's very experienced.
What's her track record?
Do you want me? I can read it for you. It's a really long one. Do you have time?
No, it's too many movies. We'll be here all night.
And then the rest of our team, I'm the writer producer, and then I have a lot of industry experience, both as a writer and a producer. And then we also have Diego Delorio, who's a writer, director, producer from Italy. We also have J.O. Oliphant, who is a content creator with over a decade of experience working in the entertainment industry. And then, of course, we also have Paul. I'm going to butcher your last name, Paul. I'm sorry. Laziminik. And he's a studio
Close.
with over 20 years of film and television experience, and has worked on international productions. And I think we are also bringing a really solid team to the table to make sure that this film is executed well and that we are able to achieve all of the profits that we want.
Killer. Right, where do I sign up? All right. You ready?
I have a couple questions.
All right, go. Great presentation, by the way, first of all.
Really
very
strong.
impressed.
Very, very strong. And I think you're onto something. I think creatively, I have a couple questions. One is, what kind of worked for Get Out was the fact that, for me, the twist of the daughter being in on it was a very, I think, good plot point. And I'm concerned that once we get to France with this family, we know there's nothing good going to come from this. And the question is, how do you keep the audience from getting ahead of you with plot points as she starts to connect, like, oh, this is the family. So I just think that's something that you have to be really careful with in the script execution of how you keep ahead of the audience, because they obviously know at a certain point that she's headed down this rabbit hole, and you don't want them ahead of you. You want them more surprised than she is.
Totally. And I fully know what you mean and agree with that. And I think a lot of films can be very typical and you kind of see the incoming, but we think that this film is unique and that it has a past life regression twist that hasn't been done before. And that plays an integral role in the plot line itself and is the big kind of twist reveal and how all of her phobias relate to her specific past lives.
The other thing I would say is that even though I love Rachel Weisz, she's a great actress, and I have no issue with that. You have to also think about the fact that Get Out was made for $4.5 million with, you know, no mega names in the cast, and you have such a strong story. I would offer you the idea to think about a reduced version with maybe one major name, because I think you could pull this off at a lower budget range and even make more money for everybody. Because you have a very, very strong story. You have great key art, which I'm sure can be made even stronger. You have a great log line. I could see a lot of people just being intrigued to want to see this movie just based on the log line. So I don't have a problem with your package as it is, but I think looking at what Get Out did, which it was like this little movie that seemed to come out of nowhere, made for $4.5 million with not a mega cast, I think you could do something similar.
Great advice. Thank you.
I love the fact that you're creating a universe with this past life regression theme, which you're correct is new. I have not seen it, and I have seen a lot of the genre stuff. Now, I don't watch all the slasher movies if they go into the slasher direction, but the smart horror films like this is something I would watch. It is important, and I haven't read the script, so I don't know if it's there or not, that this past life regression theory that you are basing this entire story on becomes a universe that I can see as a reality, that I, who don't know anything about this, I can say this makes total sense. The way she is losing herself in these past lives and how it all becomes reality, this needs to be real. It needs to feel real. It needs to be like an actual scientific theory that I am sold on could actually be true. So it's important that that she's not just portrayed as someone who has phobias and is crazy, but that part of her situation or her psyche is based on reality, because she's been there, she's lived this life before, that she is remembering something from her past that actually is true, it actually happened. You know, as many people know, these things are potentially true. So now with her, we get a chance to prove this theory. I would love to see this proven in some form. So the more real this can be, the stronger this character becomes for me, and the more I fight for her and I want to go on the journey with her to make sure she's okay. Because if she's a loony bin, you lose me on page 3. So yeah. It needs to be grounded in reality. I like the fact that you make a man, the father, I believe it was, first of all, you put him in a wheelchair, which is an interesting choice, and you make him appear weak, but then he is the one who becomes nasty. So he's the strongest one. So you twist this character in a form that I find interesting. So I just wanted to comment on a nice little twist where we think this poor guy in a wheelchair, but he's the one it sounds like is a nasty little man. So that's good. I'm okay with the budget range. I mean, if you have Rachel Weisz, the $15 million budget range is fine. Can this movie made for less? I don't know, because it's in France. France is not the cheapest place to shoot. I also think that for the genre, the budget is a tiny bit high, but with Rachel Weisz, I think you can pull it off. Now, if Rachel would say, I'm not doing this, I think the story is strong enough that you could probably cast someone who's very good, maybe not known, and maybe drop the budget by like 5 million or something, you know. So there is a way to make this, because of the story being so strong, that you don't have to necessarily chase an A-level actress, just to let you know. Because what you have going for yourself is the director. The director is going to sell this without having you necessarily needing an A-level actress. So you could get away with a strong B+ if you had to. If you don't get enough money for this, there is a way to make this and still make it good because of the director.
I have a question about your director. Why is there a 6-year gap in his IMDb directing credits?
That is a fantastic question. And I'm going to say that it's because he's been doing some independent personal projects and is just now getting back into the swing of things. But we still feel that with his proven track record and the recent release of Crawl, that he's still an excellent director that can command, you know, the ratings and audience we need.
I agree.
He decided to go on a personal journey. He was making shoes.
Oh, is that
And
what
then
it was?
and then he came back because he missed directing.
That's a great explanation. I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to go make some shoes next time I don't make a movie.
By the way,
That's Daniel Day-Lewis, by the way. That's what he did.
I love that.
to Jeanette's other point, I think it would be a very interesting idea if as part of the EPK or a companion documentary on past life regressions, and you interview 3 or 4 of the best people who do this around the world, and you integrate elements of your story into this documentary, because it is something that's done, and a lot of people think it's airy-fairy, but I think you would be able to find a couple of highly credible people that do this and stories that go with it that give credence now to your dramatic story.
Totally. And on a side note, I was just going to say, I've actually myself done a number of past life regressions, and this home and this story is based on my own past life regression.
Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps again. Holy moly, Kylie, we have to have another conversation.
And there would be several networks that would be interested in a companion documentary that comes out around the same time as the feature.
That's a great idea.
Totally. The co-producer in France, who is that?
Oh, I should have put them in the business plan. I'm sorry.
Yes, my love, because there's no French incentive.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Duly noted.
Excusez-moi. And you're right, the French incentive could be higher for all the reasons that you've mentioned, but without a French co-producer, you're not getting jack shit anything.
Totally.
So put them in. And here's another thing where I would say, oh, by the way, the script is an original script from you, yes?
Yes.
Okay, that wasn't mentioned until I saw the end, the credits, which is okay. By that point, I figured it out. Here's what I would say for this business plan. This is an excellent example for showing a low, medium, and high calculation because of the comparisons you're showing for the movie, which are very serious comparisons and they're not like pulled out of nowhere. I would actually use I would do 3 finance plans where you use the comparisons numbers using the box office from the 3 movies that you have as your revenues. B, you go to the ask level of your sales estimates, and C, you go to the low level. And then you basically present to the investor exactly what you guys are saying and saying, we are making a finance plan that's conservative, but here is your position, dear investor. You could be making $660,000 on a $2.8 million investment, or you could be making whatever the medium number would be, or if we're going theatrical, which could very well, you would be making this. Yeah. This is an example for a business plan where I would say it would really help to have these 3 low, medium, highs. And I don't usually do that, and I don't usually want to see it, but in your case, it is absolutely valid to do it. So just keep that in mind. If you actually want to do this, which I think you should be doing this movie, if you're writing something like this, and you should be sending it to me, and I'd love to help you with it. But this is a business plan that I think you could use a low, medium, high comparison. These are my only points, because I think it's a very strong presentation. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, who's next?
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, okay, I think group 2 is next. But
all right, go.
We're gonna have Kamar share his screen and I will present.
Great. Who do I need? Do I need to activate someone to share their screen?
Yes, me, Kamar. Hi.
Kamar. Oh, great. Thank you for telling me. Hold on. Let me look. Let me find you. Kamar, here you are. More. Make co-host. You should be ready to rock and roll. Great stuff, by the way, you guys. Really good. Pins and Needles. That's a great title. Ooh.
All right, so our movie's name's called Pins and Needles. It's a original script by our other member, Renee Erickson, who couldn't be here today. So I will represent her and I will try to sell her original story to you guys.
Great.
Cool. Yep. Before I present, the movie title Pins and Needles is original based on the idiom "sits on pins and needles." It's meant to convey a sense of education, anxiety, anticipation of events to come, which also reflects on the overall tone of our movie, and also to evoke associations to drugs and the character's partying lifestyle. So basically, Pins and Needles will give you sense of personal struggle. We talk about social media scandals, life as an actress in LA, and LA life in general. And our logline is a reality star pursued to set up her on-camera game unleashes a real-world spiral that leaves friendships and lives in its wake, finally forcing her to reconcile her on-screen persona with her true self. And it's a dark comedy and a thriller. Think about Ingrid Goes West or dark comedy, and it's rated R. Next slide. Overall synopsis, Nixie Cross, who happens to be our main character, is a part of ensemble cast of a lifestyle documentary set in LA. Think something like Bravo, like Vanderpump Rules or Share of Sunsets. On the first day of filming the new season, her boss and executive producer calls her to a one-on-one meeting, and Nixie expects her to fully take her under her wing as her favorite and prosthetic. But this reverie is short-lived. Her boss has canceled her there to tell her that if she doesn't step up her game on the show, she will get fired and maybe even get added out of the current season. So we're trying to have a story that's very similar to what might happen as a actress in Hollywood. Her internalized trauma, her sense of responsibility of her family, and the fear of being fired, thereby losing both income and relevancy, lead her to craft a made-for-TV character for herself that engaged in the whirlwind of increasingly destructive behavior that spins her further and further from her true self. This is a spiral of sex, drugs, manipulation, self-interest, and betrayal. Involving a social media scandal, a public fall from grace, and even a murder, it involves Nixie's sugar daddy fiance, her steroid fluid sex symbol, co-star, a mystery lover, a convenient producer, and a meme creator best friend who helps her find her true self and solve the unexpected mystery behind it all. Next. This is the word from Renee. It's a film of our time. People love reality TV, whether it's a competition show or Tiger King. On-screen personalities grab, engage, and polarize the audience. As the episodes and seasons progress, viewers want to know what really goes on, while motivating these people. So we are going to release our movie as if it's just post-COVID, and I've been told that reality TV shows will be the first things that production companies or studios trying to make right after coronavirus. So our movie is gonna try to get on that wave and make a movie about reality TV show. So fans of reality TV shows may want to watch our movie. Next. And our main character, Nixie Cross, when we met her, she's gonna be in her late 20s. She's gonna be a reality TV star with a sharp, provocative wit and an expressive social media following. She's a failed model actress with a deep-seated need for internal validation stemming from childhood trauma. She had crafted a made-for-TV personality. Her fame and fans and wealthy fiancé elevated her fear of haunt and rejection. But when her boss blindsided her with the ultimate, she transformed herself into a reality persona that spirals out of control. So basically, she faked it until she made it. And Cleo Carter, she will be our main character's best friend. Along the side, she will help Nixie get on track with her life. Next. In terms of talent, our budget is going to be 2.5 million. So it's not like a really big movie, but it's very similar to the movie that's similar to our project, which is England Goes West. That's also 2.5 million and has a total global revenue of 3.3, and that's gonna be our aim. And we want our director to be Mike Spicer, because he also directed England Goes West. Next. And our lead talent, even though I'm pretty sure she's A+ in real life, but we're trying to find B++ actresses because we have a budget limit. For our lead, we want Shay Mitchell to be Nixie. She features on Pretty Little Liars, the TV show You, and Dollface in 2019. Next. And for the best friend, we want Hannah Murray to be Cleo. She's on Game of Thrones, and we're pretty sure that even though Game of Thrones kind of didn't go well in the last season, we think she still has some sort of audience who will want to follow her. Next. And those are just our secondary characters. If you're interested, you could read this later. Next. And our vision, this is a movie that questions what is actually real when you live in your life for the camera. We become when we fashion a personality and image for our lives to fit in a narrative or a brand. It examines how wealth and power can be used to manipulate people into thinking they are making their own choices in their own best interest. Next. Moods and visuals. Think of our movie as a combination of The Player and England Goes West. It's a darker, more unsettling territory than those two. It's more like Nocturnal Animals and like Unreal. This film unveils the unseen shadows behind reality TV shows, but because the action is taking place both on camera and off in the real world, there is an added sense of gravity and seasickness as the story tosses you between on-camera antics and real-world consequences. Next. And that's basically visual-wise, that's what we're trying to, and it's gonna be like LA vibe, neon, alcohol, and all those stuff. Similar projects will be Unreal, and of course, England Goes West. And as I mentioned before, the budget, it's similar to our movie, which is 2.5 million and has a total global gross revenue of around 3.1 million. And this is our budget top sheet. I will have Kamar to present this part.
Yeah, sorry, I had a problem with my mouse. So this is our budget top sheet, and as Ryan mentioned, we have a relatively low budget, and that is because we wanted to go, especially after the COVID-19 situation, we don't know how the movies will be open, how the theaters will be open, so we just wanted to go in a modest way. So this is our top sheet, and next we have our finance plan. It is a 2.5 million budget with a strike budget of 2.39 million, and we are estimating sales of 75% international, and the pre-sales will be 35% with the down payment and all. I think that I don't need to go with all the details.
Right.
Yeah. So with the loans, we are estimating to have relatively easily, because we have a reputable sales agent, and we have sorry, we are working with some experienced producers. So we have trust in our numbers here. And then we have the brand integration. Again, post COVID-19, we are estimating that the brands will be in recession. So we are not expecting a very high number from them. And especially with a $2.5 million budget, we think that it is quite possible to have a 75,000 sponsorship amount. And with crowdfunding, again, we are going relatively easy on the number, and we are expecting 30,000 from them. Crowdsourcing and music investment. Music investment is quite important for us because of the integration of music in the reality show and the life that comes with it. Next, we have the equity, which is 21.31% of the budget, which is about 500K. And here, as you can see, we have our disclaimer to show our possible investors that it is a risky business and that they may lose their money. Hopefully not, but we just have our disclaimer. And for the recoupment, we are expecting US distribution revenues of $750,000 and a total of $2,478,000, which will give us, after the recoupment, we will have $30,000 of net profits, and which will be enough to have the profit participations as we need. And for the shooting location and the production incentive, we wanted to choose Santa Fe and New Mexico because it gives both ATL and BTL 25%. And also for non-resident, that we can have some local crew and some cast from LA. So we are also looking at the non-resident, and it's quite good, the 15% for non-resident as well. And the compensation cap is far more than our budget, so we don't have any problems with it. And I can give the word to Ryan, I think, with the target audience.
In terms of target audience, of course, we're gonna try to attract fans of reality TV shows and fans who likes the genre, which it's dark comedy and thrillers. And demographic wise, it's not gonna be a full crowded movie, I suppose, but it's gonna be include but not limited to females under 25. Next. And this is just our little SWOT analyze. We have, in terms of our strength, I think this movie will have a very strong vibe on its own. It's gonna attract people who like this kind of movie, but that's also our weakness. We only have like a very niche audience and might not attract a wider audience. Like this might not be a tentpole movie. And threats, of course, is the pandemic. We're not sure if people are still going to be willing to go out and watch movie in theaters. And opportunity-wise, we aim to attract people who love reality TV shows and who want to know what's behind those TV shows. And this is our marketing plan. We're
Mike, you
gonna.
want me to cover this part?
Yeah. Okay.
So, hi, coming to you live from a hotel room in Bakersfield. Don't be too jealous. That's Bakersfield. That's right. A little bit covering in the center there, a little bit more of our target demographic, looking at that 15 to 24-year-old age. That's heavily, heavy users of Instagram and Twitter. Also for a dark, sort of more niche comedy like this, we're probably looking at, a US-based audience, domestic audience. We talk a lot about how comedy doesn't travel, and probably something like this that's a little dark and weirder wouldn't exactly be at the top of the list for international audiences. But for domestic, I think we can find a solid grouping there. There's a little bit of an information panel at the bottom about how heavily comedies skew actually towards more female viewers as well. So that's kind of cool. As far as social media goes, we expect that to be kind of like a meaty part of our overall marketing plan, using the reality stars that do have some cachet in that market or are associated with reality TV type stuff, to get Twitter and Instagram users to use the hashtag pins and needles. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see like, that's one of our stars, sort of a fake mock-up of a tweet of like, what keeps you on pins and needles? We want people to be sharing that. We also thought of a branded giveaway of like a mini voodoo doll. That can be really fun because this woman is going a little off her rocker, right, in real life. And it would be fun if you sort of got this real life chance to, take a little bit out on your best friend or enemy or frenemy, in a sort of lighthearted way. And then the brand partnerships, I think the space is ripe for that. So, Onda is a tequila brand that actually is owned by one of our stars. So that could be a potential area of collaboration. White Claw, hard seltzer, also another very like trendy 20, 21, 22-year-old image conscious sort of drinking alcoholic choice. Instagram and of course Gucci for the fashion cachet. I think that's it. I don't know if Ryan has anything else he wants to throw in. That's our team.
Yeah, it's just we're really trying to have a movie that tells the life behind people who are working in Hollywood.
Great. Was that the last slide?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Is the last slide? Okay. Jim, you want to go first?
Sure. I think the reality thing, you have to think about a little bit, because while there are many, many, many fans of reality series, the fact that there's a dark comedy thriller about reality series, I don't think is instantly going to make them want to watch it. I think what's going to instantly make them want to watch it is this woman going through what is potentially a breakdown of what is real and what is not. And you wouldn't have to be a reality star to do that. You could be a social media influencer with somebody driving you to put up fake posts or whatever. You could be a politician who lives one life in front of the camera and one life behind the camera. So I think really what you want to focus on is make sure that you have the strongest story possible, that then the backdrop happens to be this reality show that she's working on. Because I think if you're relying on fans of reality shows to come see this movie, I think you are going to be sorely disappointed. Make a really strong movie that has the lead who's in a reality show, and then they'll come because the movie is strong. I've worked in reality for 30 years, and I just don't think a movie about a reality show is going to attract fans. The way I look at reality is that it's the new soap operas, right? In my parents' day and when I was a kid, everybody watched soap operas because the idea was, oh, these people's lives, my life sucks, but it's not as bad as those losers on TV in this show. They have money, but their lives are all screwed up. Reality shows have now taken that role. You know,
Right.
My life sucks, but those guys on Jersey Shore are pretty effed up. So there is that element of wanting to look down on reality shows and that there's a train wreck going on. But I really just feel that you should focus on the strongest story possible about this person getting manipulated to do stuff she doesn't want to do. Happens to be on a reality show, but it could have been in 5 other types of arenas of life. And I think that will help you just in every way. Because the strength is going to be in the quality of your story, and the fact that the backdrop is reality television is secondary. Important, but secondary.
Okay.
That's it from the
Thank you.
start point.
Yeah, and I think your budget range is good because it's a lower risk. It's always any movie's a risk, but at least it's a lower risk, and you really only need maybe one name star at that budget level. And it sounds like it's going to have thriller aspects. It sounds like someone might get murdered. So, you have those elements that can make a strong trailer and strong, your key art is pretty good. I think it could be made stronger. So, and you got a good title.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love the title. I really do love the title, and it made me feel that the title is very on target with what you're doing. We talked about, and I think it was module 3, I believe, about the importance of the story being born out of the character. The character is driving the story, which is a little bit what Jim is saying. So you have this character who is trying to find herself and trying to figure out who she is amongst all of it, below all of it, and driven by the Hollywood craziness and by being manipulated by this industry. I think that's important. You do have something else going for you, which I think is great. You have this whole social media driving machine behind you, which is good for the movie. It's also good for your marketing. And there hasn't really been a movie. I mean, I remember one Black Mirror episode that dealt with the pressures of social media, but there hasn't really been a movie where there is a character where we see in real life what does it do to her, the pressures of the show on one end, and then the pressure of her social media presence on the other hand. I think there are aspects that you can even elevate because she's a reality show star. The social media aspect of it is so much stronger for her and so much more toxic. Potentially can put a lot of pressure on her, and I'm sure you're thinking about that as you're putting the story together. You did something that is actually very important that I want to remind others to do. You put in a disclaimer that the investor can lose all their money, which, by the way, all of you have to do. I totally forgot about that. You are very good in how you target your audience. You made it very clear that you have thought about who's supposed to go see this and who is your main audience. And I think the target audience part is good for any business plan. Now, the other examples that we saw had a wider, more global audience, which is okay also to mention. But in your case, I think it's very good that you say, we know exactly who our audience is. What I also like is that you have a competitive analysis, which is also important for everyone else whose business plan we talked about today, talking about the weaknesses and the positives of your project. I think that's great. You pointed out exactly, here's why we're good, and here's where we know that we are weak, but here is how we're going to work with that weakness and how we can turn that weakness to our advantage. That's very important. I think that this is another example where I would do a high, medium, low, because I don't necessarily agree that this cannot be a breakout movie, because I feel you have something that could potentially be a breakout movie simply because of the subject matter. We're talking about a young woman who is manipulated through the world that she's in. And that is the manipulation comes obviously through financial pressures, but it also comes through social media and this reality television background. And that is not dissimilar to many people in the age group that you're targeting that have identity crises. They don't really know who they are outside of social media. So I think you might be able to poke into a little wound. I can't think of another word right now, but I think there is a commercial aspect here that I believe has a sort of craving in the market right now, especially in a time of pandemic where everyone lives in social media, everyone lives online, where you can be anything you want to be, but it also could go sideways if you have some troller trashing you. I mean, there is all kinds of things that can happen. I think there is something there that I could potentially make this bigger than you think it is. I think it's great that you are sticking to the budget range of 2.5. I think the director is perfect, but I do think you should allow your business plan a version where you allow it to be a breakout because of the times that we're in, and you can make the times that we're in your actual sales argument because you live in that universe right now with this genre. It's correct to say that comedy doesn't travel, but this is not just a comedy. This is, to me, this is a, yes, okay, dark comedy, but it is also a story about, it's a
social commentary, right?
And, I'm sorry, what?
A little bit of like social commentary or.
Exactly. So it's not just, it's, to me, it's a mixed genre movie, but in a good way, in a positive way. So this kind of movie has the potential to break out because of its relevance today, because of its social reflectance today. So I would not underestimate that. And because of that, I would allow it to break out also in the business plan. So this is another one where I would say show medium, low, and high scenario for your investor.
Hey, Jeanette, I had an idea.
Yeah.
Something you might be able to do, and you can do this while you're filming the movie, you could film extra content about the reality show. And you could then create, before the movie comes out, a website of this reality show that doesn't exist. And
I was thinking the exact same thing on the social media side.
And you get people to like sign up, and you have her post as the star, not as the actress.
Yep.
And you literally create this little world, and people are like, what is this? It's like Blair Witch. Did this really happen? Who is this? I want, you know. And then when the movie comes out, it all works within the movie as shot.
I love that idea, Jim. And I was on a similar trend, like I was saying, with like, could we get the star to have like a dedicated Instagram that was the character?
Yeah.
And that blurring that line between reality and
it helps drive your point of the whole movie. It helps make the point.
That would be a lot of fun. I wonder if users would get involved with it.
Well, I think you have her post a few provocative things just out of nowhere. Who's this person? Why did she do this? You know what I mean? And people start sharing it, you know?
And you know how people are using like filters these days a lot too? I was imagining as the character sort of erodes, like perhaps people start using a filter of like themselves, like post-reality TV, and they're kind of messed up and tweaked out or something like that. Something fun like that.
You will definitely have the world of advertising behind you because you're reaching the audience that they want to reach. A, the age group, and B, the platform. You're going into the online world where they want to be and where they are. So your brand inclusion and brand partnerships could potentially be much stronger, much bigger. And also the advertising, the marketing that could be arranged with these partnerships could be bigger. I like the fact that you're using brand partners that seem to be niche and hip. I think that's kind of cool, honestly. I think it all fits really nicely together. But I think you're underselling yourself a little. So you could be a little more salesy. You could be a little more brash with this and can say, this is the next best thing after sliced bread because nothing has been done like this and it speaks to our time right now. So it could be big. So that's really my sense for this. If that makes sense. Yeah? Cool. Is there someone else do we have tonight?
I think we're the last one, but I don't.
You're the last ones?
Nope.
I'm not sure.
Looks like Elle is raising her hand.
Elle, go.
Don't skip us.
Yeah, exactly. I knew there was someone else. There was another group. Go. Okay, I think I'm with did I not have Kendra as a co-host? Hey, Paul.
Hey,
hold
what's
on.
going on?
Let me see. Do I need to make Kendra a co-host? Yeah, huh?
Yes, please.
Hold on. I thought I did, and now I'm not finding her again. Darn it. Hold on. No one leaves the room. Stay with me. I need to find her here. Ah, here she is. Hold on. Kendra, make co-host. Done. You guys are ready.
Okay, so does it work for you two if I share my screen, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so I'm super excited to let me see, why is it doing that? It's giving me, you guys, I'm sorry, this is the first time that I've shared my screen.
Yeah, I never used Zoom before doing this class. My siblings who were in elementary school used it before me, and they had all these Zoom.
I used it before I taught, like we used to do Adobe Connect, and then we had to switch at UCLA. They switched us all to Zoom. So this is my first online on Zoom too. So I feel your pain, is what I'm saying.
Thank you. Thanks for your graciousness. So our format is a little different. We actually, we used one of the presentations that you gave as an example in the modules. So
great.
Our feature film is called Pandora's Pond, and it is a coming of age dramedy, actually, that's rated PG-13. So this is our poster.
Love the poster. Very cool.
Okay.
Oh, you're doing a whole business plan. Awesome. Wow.
Contents. I will not bore you with that.
Love it.
Okay, this is our executive summary. Our title is Pandora's Pond. Our tagline, you'll never know what you'll find until you look. It's a dramedy, as I said, with a PG-13 rating. It's going to be in English. These are all of our details that I'm just going to kind of scroll past because we're going to go into more detail.
Yeah.
So I really love this film that we've come up with, and the cultural significance of Pandora's Pond is two-pronged. First of all, it's a coming of age story that is set in Brooklyn and Long Island, and our lead female is Sienna, and she is a biracial teenager growing up in Brooklyn. So we also have, like many Americans living in New York, this push and pull between like this constant feeling of transition and moving. So we're going to see that mirrored in Sienna's life and also in her uncle's, who is the other lead. These are just two examples of the themes in Pandora's Pond that you'll see reflected also in our cast and crew, as well as the storyline. Our plot summary is a gritty, tough city girl spends her 15th summer at a blue-collar beach community where she develops a much-needed work ethic and changes her lot in life. A few shark encounters, white-faced hornets, wharf rats, and a skunk add to the summer coming-of-age comedy.
Great. Great.
So our synopsis is a little bit long, so I'll just summarize it. But basically, we open on Sienna, who is growing up in Brooklyn. She's biracial, and we have her right now written as half Mexican and half Italian. So her mom is Italian and her dad is Mexican, and they are working class. So she is kind of raising herself with parents who are overworked and underpresent in her life. And as is common in a family like that, she is really flunking out of school. So she's coming home one day and her parents tell her that they've got her most recent report card and they don't know how to help her anymore. And so for the summer, she is moving to her Uncle Sal's for work. She'll be going back and forth between Brooklyn, and she'll be having to take the train or the bus to get to his bait and tackle shop. Her Uncle Sal is Italian. And so we have this really fun dichotomy also of like opportunities for two different languages in the film to kind of like take little shots at each other. But more or less, we'll be seeing these transitions of her coming from these bleary-eyed late nights and stinking from the boat. When she arrives to the bait and tackle shop, this is when she first encounters these other three teens who are Long Island locals, and they're natives, and they've been working at this bait and tackle shop, and Sienna is the outsider. They do not care that her uncle is the owner. They're not taking her in, just sight unseen like this. So this is her first obstacle at Uncle Sal's shop. Because of that, she makes friends with the wharf animals until she gets by. And so we have lots of opportunities for comedy with these animals. You know, we'll also be seeing her, you know, accidentally breaking boat motors and having to mop out fish guts and having this back and forth with getting to know what the nitty gritty over in Long Island looks like. Okay, so now we have slow friendships forming, a little more goofing off as the film progresses. Slowly but surely, she becomes part of this foursome of these, you know, misfit tribe of Long Island. They named themselves Pandora's Pond Posse based on a photograph that is in their Uncle Sal's office. And Pandora's Pond was actually a pond in New Zealand where her Uncle Sal had left his previous life as a doctor and found his love for sailing and boats by jetting off to New Zealand. And so the whole film is kind of funneled in through this life of finding yourself by leaving your original home. So what Sienna originally thought was like a complete horrible situation has now become something that is starting to fill her, and she starts to have this romance blossoming with one of the other teenagers, of course. So they're going on all these adventures. They end up on Coney Island for some fun shots. And then she has another obstacle where she brings some of her friends home to her Brooklyn apartment, and her parents misjudge her and say these kids are bad news bears and ban her from seeing them. At which point, of course, as any teen will do, she completely responds in a huge way, and she runs away the next day to go stay at one of the girlfriend's houses, which forces her parents to leave their own safety and come over to Uncle Sal's, and then find out that they have to go to her girlfriend Gigi's house. And there's a great opportunity for some shots of like on either side of the door with, you know, her parents on one side and her on the other, trying to reconnect like this. So as summer is coming to a close and her parents and she mildly make up enough for her to move home, you know, she really actually has found that she feels so at home here, and she has these renewed sense of purpose in life. Because these kids are misjudged by her parents as miscreants, they're actually just locals who are very comfortable with themselves on Long Island, and they've actually been tutoring her along the way. So she's bringing her grades up, and as she's coming to a close, while there are a few strings left untied about whether or not she'll get to progress to the 11th grade, she is more solid as a young woman, and she has these solid friendships now and a home back in Tanner Park at the bait and tackle shop. And so we just have it wrapped up in a mostly nice bow where the teenagers and Uncle Sal sign her boat waiters, kind of like a yearbook. And so she's coming back on the train with smiles, thinking about, you know, this new part of her life that's really made her more full. And her parents, you know, text her telling her that they have her favorite dessert waiting and are going to celebrate her hard work and growth.
Cool. Elle, can I jump in right before we go to location?
Oh, yeah, please, Paul, please.
Just talk about like the cultural significance and ways that some of the cultural underpinnings of this movie translate well to foreign markets. Specifically, the concept of being between two heritages that the main Sienna will be between in terms of Mexico and Italy. This anxiety of coming from two places, both literally and figuratively in this film, is something that we see in English cinema, something we see very much in French cinema in terms of like Algiers versus France, and the various heritages that come about through, you know, post-colonial ideas. So this is something that, despite this being an American film and this being about this, you know, specific orientation on Long Island with New York. The idea of being in between two heritages is something that we see around the world. And despite racial politics being very specific in its nuances to the US, the real cultural underpinnings of this movie are in fact very resonant throughout the world. Jeanette, as you know, like Turkish German cinema has a lot to do with this. In France, you know, Ghanaian and French mixed peoples. This is something that resonates and I think will perform well on an international market, given that these topics are becoming more and more prevalent. Maybe a good deal in the art cinema world, but these problems are known by all peoples.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for adding that, Paul. Okay, so our locations, of course, as I mentioned, are going to be chiefly in Brooklyn and then also transitioning over to Long Island. So here we have, you know, of course, the famous trains, and we've got a brownstone. We have these wharfs and, you know, some teenage car action, Coney Island, and then, of course, the bait and tackle shop. Our mood board, and we're pulling from some, you know, a little lighter, washed out feel of kind of a sleepy boat town, and a little bit of the likes of Jaws.
And Hal Hartley movies. So, the unbelievable truth that.
And we did some preliminary scouts, so these are some possible locations that we could use and priced out. And these and then these are our statements. So for our director, we chose Taika Waititi, and for several reasons. He is from New Zealand, so it's just kind of serendipitous that our story is coming from this pond image from New Zealand. He's from New Zealand. He's also biracial. He's half Maori and half Ashkenazi Jew. So these are things that resonate with him. And also, although he's you know, known for films like Jojo Rabbit and the Thor and the new upcoming Thor, he actually has a history and a record of taking on biracial comedies. So with you know, either biracial leads or a couple that is biracial, and strong comedies, as well as you know, consultant producers in teen comedies like The In-Betweeners.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very excited because he's he's not only a hot you know, button right now and exciting, but he also is really attached to the story. Is that, and I'm going to pass it over to Paul.
Cool. Yeah. So in terms of cast and characters, I'm just going to very briefly go over some of the options we have or that we've come up with and we feel will be financially beneficial to the project. So for Sienna, you know, her tentative age is 15 years old, and I'll go ahead and give off my character breakdowns. A Brooklyn native, Sienna initially hates her summer job laboring away on a dock alongside the Long Island Sound. With time, she learns to love the serenity and the slow life of an old New England beach town and appreciate the hard work she's invested in it. For our two options, we have Marseille Martin and Loretto Peralta. Both younger actresses, but up-and-coming SAG members, of course. So we feel that between the two of them, they would be functional options. For Uncle Sal, whose tentative age is 37, I'll go ahead and read that everybody loves Uncle Sal. He's the moral compass of the group and an easy person to love, which I think Adam Scott is commonly thought of, or his characters lean in that direction. Well, the character cares about his community. As Elle mentioned earlier, he stumbled upon the New England town after quitting his very difficult primary care physician position on the Upper East Side. You know, there are a lot of very difficult hospitals to live and work in up on the Upper East Side. So he had a very difficult life as a physician up there. So he finds sailing, and like a lot of physicians I know, actually, they decide that they want to do something else after, you know, spending $300,000 on a medical degree.
Hey, Paul, could I jump into?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So right now we have letters of intent from both Loretto and Milo, and something that's really exciting about both of these is that Loretto is, you know, she lives in Mexico City, and she Spanish is her first language, and her grandfather is actually the real estate billionaire Carlos Peralta. So with her 2 million followers on Instagram, she also comes with lots of brand partnership opportunities via her grandfather. And she has a very popular presence in Mexico. And with Milo, we're really excited, not only by his look of, obviously could go both ways, and being a successful actor, but he also has, he actually has a paralyzed part of his mouth, of his lip. And so he looks, when he's talking, and people describe it as he's talking sideways. And so it gives us a little bit more of, while it's not more commonly considered disability, it gives us a little more resonance with larger audience groups.
I like that.
Yeah, cool. So we'll go ahead on to Gigi. Gigi, tentative age at 16. Gigi's family has lived in Long Island for as long as they can possibly track. She loves the town that she lives in. She couldn't really imagine living anywhere else. And to this end, she's very self-knowing for a woman her age, a good listener, and a really good friend in this regard to Sienna, who is experiencing a lot and going through a lot of internal turmoil. For this character, we have tentatively Jessica Barden, Mayatri Ramakrishnan, and Thomason McKenzie. For Mel, who is the love interest, Mel is a recent transplant to the New England town. His family recently moved from the Upper West Side, so a slightly different connotation if you're familiar with New York demographics. After realizing they needed more space to welcome in addition to their family some time back. Mel and Sienna both are New Yorkers, so this is a strong initial connection for them, and this is kind of a doorway to how they get to know each other. All right, so for two options here, we have Wyatt Olef and Benjamin Norris. So a character I really enjoyed that Elle came up with was Bryson, and I kind of pointed this character more towards, there's definitely, a good thrust of the film has to do with, you know, being between two heritages, but also I think that has a lot to do with which spaces belong to which heritage. So Bryson, you know, I would like to cast him as an African-American man, because I think there are a lot of spaces in Manhattan specifically that are commonly not thought of as African-American spaces. And specifically, I think a lot of musical spaces. So for Bryson, my idea was to have this African-American man that is enthralled with New York punk culture, which, you know, is very pervasive all over the place, especially in the Lower East Side. But it's very commonly understood as this like cis white male space. So with this regard, I would really love to cast Caleb McLaughlin. You know, he's right off of, Stranger Things. So he's, you know, maybe he's not an A-list star at the moment, but he definitely has a lot of pull, given that a lot of, you know, people his age or maybe younger, you know, can maybe look up to him in some effect, or they recognize him and they'd be, you know, they would likely watch the film because he's in it. So go ahead, Al, do you want to take over for, or do you want me to read this part, Al, or do you want to read your bios? I figured we could read our bios ourselves.
Sure. So my bio, I was born in Decatur, Georgia, and I grew up in the suburbs with not much money, wandering through the woods. My dad being dragged to musical theater performances. I have a history as far as academia goes with economics, photography, and Italian. as well as producing. I have 8 years that I trained as an actor, and I have shifted over into producing with a few credits as production coordinator and a key PA on 2 features this year, and then a few short films, and I'll be my first assistant director role next month in New York. I'll be
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Yay.
on
That's
a
awesome.
it's actually an African market film called Web.
Nice.
Yeah, and sorry about this, but we because we were having fun within our group, we had a placeholder for for Taika's space. So Albert's actually one of our team members, but obviously we're doing Taika Waititi as our director. And although I already talked about him before, I'll go over it again, that he is a New Zealand native who is half Maori. If you're not familiar with that, they're the indigenous people, and he's also half Ashkenazi Jew. He worked in New Zealand with film for a long time, and he now resides in Los Angeles with his wife and 2 kids. He's known as a writer and a producer, as well as a consultant and director, and a fabulous executive producer. So yes. Next, well, let's talk about Albert, since he is listed there. He's a chief operating officer of Group Gallery Inc., an independent media production and distribution company where he leads the operations and financial affairs. Albert worked for the Pun Group in the accounting, compliance, and advisory department between 2014 and 20, and he received a BA degree in business and an MBA at Point Loma Nazarene University, and he is also certified public.
Great.
A CPA degree, that's tough. I could never ever do that. So
Me
I'll read
neither.
That's
a tough one.
No, so my name is Paul Albert. I was raised in Tampa, Florida. I went to Carleton College before transferring to the University of Florida. Graduated from there, and during my time there, I lived in Berlin for a year. I speak German. I'm in contact with a lot of German filmmakers still in the Berlin-Brandenburg area. And eventually I hope to transition back to Northern Germany, Western Germany. I would like to work in between the US and Germany. And of course, I'm in the UCLA producing program.
And of course, we'll work on your transition back to Germany.
Schön, yeah.
Schön.
Schön. Yeah, Nunu is not able to be with us, so I guess I'll go ahead and read hers if that's okay, Elle. So Nunu Dang was born in Khartoum, the Sudan, raised in the American Midwest, Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, and Fairfax, Virginia. After high school, she was a Dean's Theater Student Studies Scholar at the prestigious The Theater School at DePaul University, studying theater management. Nunu has freelanced in events for a variety of industries, primary entertainment and philanthropy. She's also very good at event coordination. In one of my other classes, she comes up with these very fantastic ideas about how to market her projects or her ideas in a very effective way. She's the founder, executive director of the inaugural Pangea Under the Stars Film Festival, which I read about just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I realized, wow, so someone I know started this, which is fantastic. She was the producer of 2 Minutes to Midnight, which is a worldwide festival, and she's of course enrolled in our program.
And Kendra.
And I will go ahead and say something about myself. So I'm a producer from Los Angeles. I've transitioned into producing from other careers. I'm studying producing at UCLA Extension, and I've produced my first indie feature, Filthy Animals, which is currently in post-production. I'm sure you guys already know about that. But at any rate, I have a lot of business management skills and coordination skills that have lended very well to producing, and I'm very excited to be part of this project. Sebastian was not able to get his bio in, and I don't think he's on the Zoom meeting either. So, surprise, surprise, our executive producer is Jeanette Emilio.
And don't read my bio. Way too long, no need.
Yes.
Move on.
All right, I'll go ahead and continue. The production companies we're going to be working with, one is Diverse Minds Entertainment, and that's actually the production company our core group has created. So of course this is fictional, so we're going to be the main production company overseeing things. Locally in New York, we're going to work with Sycamore Pictures. They have a lot of connections with the local guilds, crews, locations. So we're going to be using them for most of the local stuff. For this section, I know Nunu wanted to present this herself, but she couldn't be here. So some similar films, Blue Crush from 2002, The Last Song, 2010, The Way, Way Back, 2013. And another one that's not in here, but I think is relevant, is 8th Grade from 2018. And specifically with 8th Grade, it was a smaller budget film that didn't have a lot of huge names in it, and yet they made a huge amount of money domestically. And we are hoping to, ride that type of train with this. We have a smaller budget. We'll go through it shortly, but yeah, we're hopeful that we could hopefully have a success like 8th Grade.
Yeah, I mean, finally, we're starting to get Bildrung's romance stories for women. So I think this is definitely a good time to release a film like this, given it's not overly saturated yet. And it's a topic that I think a lot of people are really invested in seeing. So I think it's a good time to release something like this.
Great, thanks, Paul. For sales estimates, we're working with Sierra Affinity for this. And because this is, again, probably more of a domestically focused film, although we hope with Italy and Mexico, with a mix, depending on who we cast for the lead, that we'll get interest from non-English speaking countries as well. But so far we have a few of the English speaking countries who have pre-sold and that we've been able to get pre-sales with. Additionally, we have a letter of intent from Fox Searchlight Pictures, which they have said that they will give us 35% of our budget, in sales. That's the estimate. So for domestic, the sales are only estimated in our budget as about, let me see, sorry.
35% of 2 million?
Yes, of 2 million. But we're hopeful, like I said, with 8th Grade, I mean, they had a very small budget of 2 million, but they made, I think it was 13.5 million domestically. So again,
great movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah, so we do have some good sales. Because we have Jeanette working with us as executive producer, we are also to be able to pre-sale in Germany, Austria, Switzerland.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
So we can just scroll down here. These are the territories we have not yet sold. Right.
These are capitalized on long, hard-earned relationships, Jim.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You networked, Elle. That's right.
That's right.
As I mentioned, the budget is 2 million. We're hoping for principal photography to start in June of next year. It'll go over 4 weeks. Post-production would be August through November of 2021 for a summer release of 2022. Again, it was mentioned it was PG-13, so we should have a wider audience. We will have a completion bond through film finances or European film. Sorry, I think we want to just do the film finances. Freeway Entertainment will be helping us with escrow and our collection account services. We will have insurance for production and our E&O. And then I'll go ahead and Paul, would you like to talk about the risks?
Yeah, and of course we're going to have, as Kendra mentioned, our completion bond, and we'll also be, of course, using a line producer who is bondable, sales agents who are bondable. So in that regard, we should be very insured. We're also interested in having a performance clause for our sales agent so that we can lock them into some sort of numbers, and in which case they're not able to achieve them, we have we have arbitration rights or something. We have some way to kind of call back something. And of course, as we've learned throughout this course, we will be using CAMA and not giving the distributor the distributor will not be getting paid directly. Everything will go into a CAMA, so all money and finances can be seen and rightfully distributed.
Okay, and to wrap it up with the brand partnership and marketing, obviously we know more these days just how much financing is available by creative product placement. So for Pandora's Pond, the most obvious partners are something like Boston Whaler, because we'll be having some boats in there. Long Island Iced Tea, Budweiser and PepsiCo opportunities with the teenagers, sneaking a beer here and there, and of course, like hanging out for lunches and all of this. I mean, larger brands like Chevrolet. We'll also be partnering because the film is being shot in Long Island and Brooklyn. This is New York, and so we'll be partnering with the Governor's Office of Motion Picture and TV Development, as well as the Suffolk County Film Commission and the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. And again, if we end up casting Loretta Peralta, her grandfather's conglomerate, covers everything from, they just came onto Amazon as a seller, and they own a large apparel and footwear company that would be another opportunity, which he would then obviously be incentivized to partner and put some money forward for his granddaughter. And yeah, legal rep, distribution, here we go. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, UK, and Germany will be 20th Century Fox. And then here's our disclaimer. So don't steal it from us.
And one thing we didn't have in the document was a little more information about the finance plan.
That's okay.
I don't know if you want to share that, Elle, or I could just speak to it a bit.
Go ahead, Kendra, take it away.
Okay, so for revenue, we're hoping for around $2 million in total. Expenses are going to run around $1,897,000. So the profit, which is very conservative, is $101,000 roughly. Again, we are banking on that there's going to be a much bigger domestic revenue than we're planning for in our budget. So the return on investment calculation for an equity investor, for their investment, they of course would get the 20% premium, and with the current very conservative estimate for profit, their total ROI for their investment would be 22.53%.
I'm sorry, you guys, I'm trying to pull up the finance document.
Well, it's okay, we get it. No, don't worry, Al, it's all good.
It's
all good. It's all good. I think I spoke to Nunu about it, so I think I've seen it before.
So you have.
All right, Jim, you go.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. More so than any of the projects that I've heard today, and at the risk of telling you the bleeding obvious, it's really going to come down to how strong your script is and how strong your lead actress is. Everything else can be made to work, but if you don't have a really strong, and I love The Way Back. I thought that was a great film. But coming of age films are some of those things that really fall into the, I've seen this, I get this, I know this. So you have some nice elements that take it to a little bit different place. But without seeing the script, and it just really has to kick butt. And your actress, I don't care if she's got 2 million social media followers. If she doesn't make everybody fall in love with her who watches this movie, I don't care how many followers she has. So it's really just, to me, those are two key elements. And if you had Taika attached to this project, I would greenlight it tomorrow. I would greenlight it in this call, just because I know his skills as a writer and director on a wide variety of projects. I mean, to go from Marvel to What We Do in the Shadows is like a crazy thing. So, but really, I hope your script is great, and whether or not it's the actresses you talk about or somebody else, I mean, that person's really got to make it go.
All right.
It all sounds great. I mean, the budget range is good and all that stuff.
I have to say, I'm very impressed. First of all, the level of detail you went into, and you thought about everything in such detail. I have to say, congratulations. I think this is as full blown as they come. This is a business plan. I mean, yes, you can add the financials and so forth, but I love the fact that you thought through every single step. You went as far as naming the completion bond company, you have front row insurance, you really went into detail, which signals to an investor you really thought this through. So from an investment point of view, I would say it feels like it was thought through from the beginning to the end by looking at how it's going to be realized, locations, this and any other. The creative point that Jim made, I think it is important to say that the racial mix combination that you have chosen is very unusual, and I love that. I love that you chose two races that are very strong, that are very competing and somewhat competing in cultures, and that just by being that combination already causes all kinds of problems for her. So the lead character, when we start meeting her, she's already confused as much as you can be confused. The fact that her parents are not there to guide her is also adding to that confusion. And the fact that she has to not only figure out what end of the spectrum does she belong to, but she has to figure out who she is. And she has no role model really, because she's raising herself more or less. Very enticing to me, I have to say. So it takes the coming of age story into a whole different level of you're really coming of age, because you have to find yourself first and then you come of age. And then the fish out of water element that you're adding to it, which is my favorite kind of story, is adding to that conundrum of who am I, and now I'm in a total different environment. And I like the fact that you put it together with people that seem more grounded, that she can lean on, and that she can be guided to. And I think it's only a natural reaction that she glues onto these people in a way, because she wants to try to have a relationship with someone, because she doesn't have a relationship with her parents, because she can't have one really. I mean, not to the extent. And the fact that then her parents are the one to tell her, now that you formed a relationship that makes sense, that they're not even able to see how important that is for her and for her own development, is even more perfect. They don't even know their own child. So it's fantastic on every psychological. You push this so hard in every corner you can push it psychologically. It's beautiful. So from that point of view, fantastic. I do think that your actor, the lead actor, is going to have so much joy in playing this role, because you have to play a huge range. I think you can even go for someone who it could be a name you want, it could be anyone you want, because the role is so meaty and spicy that you could have your pick. I really think with the director you have your pick anyway. I mean, that director can cast anyone. And I like the fact that you chose a director who has done a very big variety of work, where this could be very colorful. I mean, it already is colorful by its own nature, but the director adds to that too. All in all, I have to say, extremely well thought through, great story, very enticing, very important cultural topic. As one of you guys was saying, the world we live in today is a multi mix of places, and it doesn't matter if you're in a small country like Germany, where the Turkish and the Italians and they're all meshed together, and somehow they figure it out, or sometimes they don't. Or you're in LA, where the Mexicans are there, and you have the Italians, and you have all that mixed up. I mean, no matter where you are, if it's a bigger or a smaller place, we find multicultural aspects everywhere. And you're teaching, I mean, teaching sounds really not great, but you are ingraining, or you're supporting a message of tolerance, and that speaks to me, and a message of acceptance of the other. And I think that speaks to many audiences too. And for that reason, I think it's a very commercial project, which also has the potential to break out. It's another one where I would say, please show me the breakout potential by giving me medium, high, low numbers for my investment. And your brand relationships are strong because they really go in line with your target audience and with your theme. So they could help market this story. I think with a director like, I forgot his name already. Darn it, it's too late. Thank you, that one. The budget could be challenged. I think a bond company would have a hard time having this shoot in Long Island or New York area where things are not cheap with the director of this. I don't know if you can, I mean, there's so much going on here, and especially with the boat and the animals and the water, and I have shot on the water with animals, so I know how expensive that is. You might want to add a little to that budget. I think a bond company would tell you add a little, but it's not going to be bad because this movie can live even on a $5 million budget, just so you know. Just because of the elements, just because of the storytelling, and I don't think you're going to hurt yourself by playing it out on that budget level. What else did I see? I mean, fantastic. I don't know what to say. It's a fantastic project. I have to say, every one of these projects today, I would want to see a detail, and I would even consider to finance because they're all good and they all have this confined universe that is enticing. So every single one was fantastic. Wow. Well, do you have a script for this? Is there a script for this? Or is it just made up? You better write one then. Get on with it.
Yeah, we just made it up.
Yeah, but you should think about writing one because
borrowed my daughter's life and expanded.
Classic.
Okay then. Well, all right. So do we have anyone else or are we done? I think we got them all, right? Okay, I think we took a lot of time here. So what I would say is this. I'm not going to walk you through the final prep case study. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to record it. I'm going to walk you through my own recording and I circulate it. And I will do it that way, so I don't need you don't have to spend another hour with me talking about some stupid ass case study, excuse my French. So I would do that if that's okay with you. And then if anyone has a question about it, you can email me and then we'll get on a call with whoever has a question about it. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thank you
thank you
very much.
Good
I
job,
am so impressed.
Great
All
job.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Nice to see you, Jimbo.
Nice.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.